You know, when you look at the history of artificial intelligence, it's pretty clear it's not a straight line up. It's more like these huge waves, right? Massive surges of hype and excitement, and then nothing. It all just goes quiet. Well, today we're going to dive deep into that cycle. We're talking about the dramatic booms and the chilling busts we now call AI winters.
Okay, so to really wrap our heads around this, the best way to think about it is with seasons. Forget a ladder of progress. Picture this. You have these hot, exciting AI summers where everyone is throwing money at it, the optimism is just through the roof. But then, that's followed by these cold, brutal AI winters where all that excitement vanishes, the funding dries up, and it feels like everything's frozen solid. So what exactly is an AI winter? It's not just a cute name, it's the actual term for these downturns. It's that moment when all the massive, world-changing promises of AI just don't happen. And when that happens, investors get scared, governments pull their funding, and suddenly nobody's talking about it anymore. It's an absolutely crucial idea to grasp if we want to understand AI's past and maybe, just maybe, its future.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to go all the way back to the beginning, the era of big dreams and the very first big freeze. Then we'll fast forward to the boom and bust cycle of the 80s. From there, we'll figure out what's fueling this incredible AI spring we're in right now. And to wrap it all up, we're going to take everything we've learned, look at the present, and ask that big question, is another winter on its way? Okay, let's kick things off at the very start, the birth of AI. I mean, it was a time of just incredible, boundless optimism, a real golden age of dreaming big. But, as you can probably guess, those dreams were about to run smack into a very, very cold wall of reality. And this quote, it just perfectly captures that vibe. It's from the proposal for the 1956 Dartmouth Workshop. This is the legendary event where the term artificial intelligence was actually born. I mean, listen to it. The founders truly believed that building a thinking machine wasn't a question of if it was possible, but just a matter of when. In their minds, there were absolutely no limits. And the early days were full of what looked like huge breakthroughs. You had things like the general problem solver, which was supposed to be able to tackle any logical problem you threw at it. But the hype just got completely out of control. By 1970, you had a top researcher, Marvin Minsky, predicting human-level AI in just 3 to 8 years. So when those promises, of course, fell flat, the people holding the purse strings got really nervous. A couple of reports, the APAC and Lighthill reports, came out, and they were just brutal. They basically said, where are the real-world results? And boom, massive funding cuts. The first winter was definitely on its way. So this is where it gets really interesting, because it gets to the why of it all. See, the early approach was called symbolic AI. The whole idea was you could just program a machine with enough rules and logic to make it think. Simple, right? The promise was machines that could reason just like us. But reality? Well, reality was a harsh teacher. They ran into a few massive problems. First up was something called the combinatorial explosion. The best analogy is a chess game. A few moves in, it's pretty simple, but just a few more moves and the number of possible outcomes is astronomical. Early AI just kept hitting that wall. Then you had the common sense gap. I mean, these machines had no idea that water is wet or that you can't push a rope. And on top of all that, they were running this on hardware that, let's be honest, a modern calculator would laugh at. It was just a hard ceiling. All right, let's jump forward to the next cycle, because this story definitely doesn't end there. After that first freeze, AI clawed its way back in the 1980s. But this time, it had a new, much more focused strategy. And this comeback, it created a huge commercial boom. But it was a boom built on a foundation that, well, had some pretty big cracks of its own. So the big technology that brought AI back from the cold was something called an expert system. The idea was pretty smart. Instead of trying to build a machine that could think about everything, researchers decided to focus on creating systems that were just experts in one super narrow thing. Think of it like a digital specialist, a doctor, or maybe an engineer. And for a while there, it really worked. I mean, you had systems like Mycin that could diagnose infectious diseases just as accurately as human specialists. Then there was XCon, which saved its company DEC an absolute fortune. We're talking an estimated $40 million a year, just by figuring out complex computer setups. The boom got so big that whole companies popped up just to sell specialized hardware called Lisp machines, basically computers built for the sole purpose of running these AI programs. Even entire countries, like Japan, jumped in with massive national projects trying to win the AI race. So here's the million-dollar question. Why did this boom go bust too? Well, it boils down to a few key reasons. First, these expert systems were incredibly brittle. As long as you stayed within their very narrow set of rules, they were great. But the second you gave them an unexpected input, they just fell apart, catastrophically. Then there was the knowledge bottleneck. It was just so incredibly hard and time-consuming to get all that human expertise out of a person's head and into code. And to top it off, the whole market for those expensive, specialized Lisk machines, it just collapsed when powerful everyday PCs started to get good enough. And just like that, the second, even deeper AI winter was here. But after that deep, deep freeze of the 90s, things started to change. You could feel the climate shifting. Three incredibly powerful forces started to come together, creating the absolute perfect conditions for a thaw that would lead to the explosive AI spring that we are all living through right now. So what was different this time? Well, it was basically a perfect storm of three key ingredients. First, you had big data. Suddenly, the internet created this massive ocean of information, all the text, all the images, and that was the fuel these new models were starving for. Second, we got powerful compute. And funnily enough, we can thank the video game industry for that one. They gave us GPUs, which turned out to be the perfect engines for processing all that data in parallel. And third, we had advanced algorithms. We finally got new architectural blueprints like backpropagation and deep learning that showed us how to put the fuel and the engine together to actually do something incredible. You know, if you had to point to one single moment, one tipping point where the modern AI spring officially kicked off, it would have to be this, the 2012 ImageNet competition. It's basically a contest to see whose program is the best at recognizing objects in pictures. And for years, progress had been, well, slow. Tiny little improvements. But in 2012, everything, and I mean everything, changed. A deep learning model came along, a model called AlexNet, and it didn't just win. It absolutely demolished the competition. Get this, its error rate was more than 10 percentage points lower than the next best entry. Now, in a field where people were fighting for fractions of a percent of improvement, this was like a bomb going off. It was a total paradigm shift. It was the definitive proof that this deep learning stuff worked, and it basically fired the starting gun for the AI gold rush that we are still in the middle of today. And that brings us right up to today. Right now, we are, without a doubt, in the middle of the hottest AI summer in history. But all those lessons from the past, they force us to stop and ask a really critical question. We have to use that history as our guide to look for any clouds gathering on the horizon. So the big question is, are we heading for another AI winter? I mean, think about it. The hype around generative AI right now feels familiar, doesn't it? The promises are bigger and grander than they have ever been. Are we just doomed to repeat this same cycle of boom and bust all over again? Well, when you actually compare this current summer to the ones in the past, a couple of things stand out. The hype level? Yeah, it's off the charts. The investment? Absolutely unprecedented, way beyond anything we've seen before. But there is one huge difference this time around: real-world adoption. I mean, this stuff is everywhere. The breakthroughs then led directly to the AI that's in your pocket, in our cars, running in businesses everywhere. That widespread, genuine utility? That might just be the anchor that keeps the whole ship from sinking this time. But let's not get too comfortable. That giant tower of progress we've built, it might be a little wobbly. Each one of these points here is a serious risk. First, the cost. The sheer energy and compute costs to train these things are astronomical. Is that really sustainable in the long run? Also, what happens when we run out of high-quality data to train on? And here's a big one. What if generative AI just fails to deliver on the massive commercial promises? Or what if there's a huge safety problem that causes a major public backlash? Any one of those things could cause the funding to dry up, and things could get very, very chilly very fast. And that really brings us to our final, most important question. See, this isn't really about trying to predict the future with a crystal ball. It's about trying to shape it. By understanding all those failures from the past, the crazy overpromising, the technical walls they hit, the brittleness of the old solutions, we basically have a playbook of what not to do. It forces us to ask the hard questions right now. Are we managing expectations, or are we just feeling the hype? Are we investing in real, sustainable progress, or just chasing the next shiny object? Because if the history of AI winters teaches us anything, it's that progress is never, ever guaranteed. And the only way to keep this amazing spring from turning into another bitter winter is to learn from the past.